You are always manifesting what your subconscious mind is wired for, whether that's good or it's bad. And if you're like me, I was manifesting a lot of bad in my life. Every single day, I would have constant anxiety, stress. I would always have like stomach issues, going through heartbreak, never had enough money. And no matter what I did, I felt like I never like got a break. And when I realized that my subconscious was the one that was in charge, basically creating the reality around me and the life that I was living, I knew that I had to reprogram it. But when I first got into learning how to reprogram my subconscious mind, I tried doing like affirmations, scripting, journaling. I even tried meditating, but it didn't actually work for me. So I started to dive deep into learning more about what actually goes on in your mind, your subconscious brain, what causes it to change, and how to actually reprogram it, not for a short period of time, but for literally life. So that's what I want to cover in today's video, because I promise you, if you have tried to reprogram your subconscious mind, maybe you've watched like a dozen other videos on YouTube and it hasn't worked for you, I promise you by the end of this video, not only will you know how to properly reprogram your subconscious mind, you're actually gonna know what makes up your mind, so you're consciously aware of what to do to shift it. So there's a lot that I'm gonna cover. I have all my notes here. So the first thing I wanna go through is what actually makes up your subconscious mind, because once again, in order for you to change it and to reprogram it, you want to know what first makes up the mind, and then we're gonna go through what causes real change in your subconscious mind. And it might not be what you actually think it is, because I know for me, when I learned about this, I was like, wow, that actually makes so much sense. And then finally, we're gonna go through the exact steps to reprogram the subconscious mind. So first things first, let's go through what actually makes up your subconscious mind. Now, I wanna briefly go through the difference between like your subconscious mind and your conscious mind if you're not sure the difference between the two. So first of all, your conscious mind is basically what is actively keeping you aware right now in this moment. You're watching this video, you're thinking about what to do next, you're planning, your decision making, you're organizing. It's basically what is keeping you alert at all times of the day. Now, your subconscious mind is actually working without your conscious awareness, and that's where you hold a lot of your thoughts, repetitive loops, your beliefs, behaviors, even sometimes like habits and actions. And your subconscious mind is also what keeps you alive. Like you breathing, your heart beating, when you're like physically taking action, movement, you don't have to consciously think about doing it. It happens subconsciously. Now, when I was experiencing a lot of problems and issues in my life, I started to think about where did those things actually come from. And growing up, it all came down to the stories that I was telling myself. When I was 15 years old, my mom passed away. I was in a toxic, abusive 4-year relationship all throughout high school. I was always going to doctors because I always had like stomach issues and pain and heart palpitations and anxiety. And I realized it was the stories that I was telling myself that was creating the reality around me. So a big part of your subconscious mind is made up of the stories that you are telling yourself. Now, when we break it down even further, what actually makes up the stories? And it comes down to 5 things that I found. It comes down to, first of all, the beliefs that you hold true to yourself. So beliefs are all about the ideas, the truths, everything that you believe to be true that basically makes up your identity and your life, right? So if you have the belief that money is really hard to get, that is the reality that you're going to build for yourself. On the flip side, if you believe joy and happiness is everywhere and you can always find it at any given moment, that's also what is going to be true for you, and that's also what you're going to experience in your life. And then we have conditioning. This is basically every single thing that you absorb from your environment, especially when you're growing up. So this can be religion, this can be culture, this can be from your school, this can be from media, from your parents. So growing up, if your parents were always stressed about work, you probably have the condition of work and career equals stress. So a lot of the times that's actually what you experience when you're older. And then we have identity. And this is all about all of the I am statements that you tell yourself. This can be, I am shy, I am confident, I am not good enough. You start to associate yourself with those I am statements. And in result, that can either help you or hurt you when it comes to building the life that you actually want. For me, everyone always told me growing up that, oh my gosh, you're so shy, you're so quiet. So of course, I labeled that as my identity. I always said, oh, I'm shy. I can't get on camera. I can't build a brand. So of course, when it came time to me actually doing that, I had to reprogram that label. Otherwise, I would never be on social media. I would never have this channel. I would never be creating these videos because I was associating myself with that label and with that identity. And then we have events. This is a very big one. And this can be good or bad events that you store as memories. And they're not just memories because every single memory stores an emotion. So for an example, when you were younger, maybe you were being very loud and you're playing around the house and your parents told you, shh, be quiet, you can't do that in the house. Now, that was probably ingrained in your mind. Now, as you're older, maybe you don't like speaking up and you don't like being vocal because you associated being loud as bad. And that basically programmed your mind to believe that you can't really express yourself, nor can you be creative because you had that experience when you were younger. And then finally, the last one, which is also a really big one. I mean, all of these are really big ones that make up, once again, the stories that you're telling yourself that make up your subconscious mind. And this is nervous system wiring. Now, that's basically how your body reacts to perceived safety or danger. So for me, I honestly have experienced anxiety for close to 10 years now. And now, I mean, it's a lot better because I practice what I share with you guys. But prior to that, I always experienced like this tense, heavy feeling in my chest, no matter what I was doing. The moment I would wake up, I would feel that feeling. If I was writing in my notepad, I would feel that feeling. If I was eating dinner, I would feel that feeling. And it was because my nervous system was wired for survival, for fight, flight mode, and for freeze mode because I was in that constant state of survival and like basically defensive mode. And I actually did a full video on like nervous system regulation. So if you're curious about that, you can watch that video next. But nervous system wiring is a really big one because over time, your subconscious mind actually becomes the body. So that is why anytime you want to take real physical change in your life, your palms get sweaty, your heart starts to race, your body is like, don't do it, even though there is no real perceived danger. There's not like a lion out there trying to chase you, but your body feels that way. So now that we know all 5 of these things make up the stories in our mind that make up our subconscious, the question is, what actually changes our subconscious mind, which is what I want to get into next. Now, there's a lot of things that reprogram the subconscious mind, and that's what I'm going to get here in a little bit, the exact steps of what to do. But we need to first understand what actually changes the subconscious mind. Because when we reprogram it, we basically use different actions and different concepts, like once again, meditation, affirmation, journaling, subliminals, all those things. But when we're doing those things, what about that changes the subconscious mind? And it comes down to one thing: emotion. Emotion is what actually creates your subconscious mind, and emotion is actually what changes your subconscious mind as well. Because if you think about it, the beliefs that you hold, they have a strong emotional tie behind it, which is why you have those beliefs. Conditioning, the reason why people live and die by religion and culture and social media and school and things that your parents told you, is because there's a strong emotional tie to it. Once again, identity. When I first understood that shyness was something that I didn't need to hold on to anymore, I didn't have an identity anymore, because up until then, I was associating my entire being as being shy. Strong emotional hold. Events, we all remember the best birthday we had, but at the same time, we also remember the worst heartbreak that we went through because we had such a strong experience and feeling going through it. And then finally, like nervous system wiring, the emotion that we feel doesn't just happen in the mind, but it can, like, we can truly feel that feeling in our body. So when it comes to reprogramming the subconscious mind, It's not just about changing the emotion, going from sadness to happiness and going from anxious to being calm. We're not just replacing it with a different emotion. We have to replace it with a stronger emotion that holds a stronger charge or equal to that charge. So a lot of the times when we try to reprogram our mind and we say affirmations like, I am confident, I am strong, it doesn't hold a stronger emotional charge than the feeling that we have of, oh, I'm not worthy and I'm not loved, because we had that past event or prior experience that created, once again, that identity for us. So the common denominator when it comes to the stories that we're telling ourselves, once again, the beliefs, the conditioning, the identity, the events, the nervous system wiring, comes down to emotion. And sometimes the strongest emotional charges, like joy, love, anger, fear, is what is rooted with our subconscious mind. So let's take relationships for an example. If you have gone on so many bad dates and you always went through heartbreak, you have a very strong emotional charge when it comes to dating. And it's not a positive emotional charge. Maybe you have the emotional charge of being betrayed, getting cheated on, being very even angry, sad, unworthy. So now when you try to go on dates, or maybe you did find someone you really like, you're not operating from the new emotion, from the new self. You're still operating from your subconscious mind, and that's why that relationship will never actually work out. So we need to understand, once again, if we want to truly reprogram the subconscious mind, it's not just about doing the actions and activities and exercises and affirmations and drilling and stuff from our current state. We have to first replace it with a new emotion, and thus from there we can actually reprogram our subconscious mind. So that's what I want to finally get into now, is all the different ways that you can reprogram your subconscious mind. Now, what I'm going to say is something that maybe a lot of people might not agree with, but it is so true. In order to reprogram your subconscious, yes, you have to do it subconsciously, but you also have to do it consciously, because we are awake, conscious, more than we are asleep and unconscious. And a lot of the times, the conditioning, the identity, the beliefs, the thoughts, the stories that pop up is happening when we are consciously aware, living our day-to-day life. So I always say, if you can be consciously aware of your subconscious, it's easier for you to change and reprogram it. So the first thing I want to go through is meditation. Now, the reason why earlier I said I tried meditation way long ago and it never worked for me is because I wasn't doing it right. Now, as you know, I meditate every single day, and I have been doing it for years now. And the reason why meditation works really, really well is because of this brainwave chart. So in order for you to tap into your subconscious mind, you need to slow down your brainwaves, and you need to tap into alpha mode, which is like light meditation, or theta mode, and that's like deep relaxation, meditation, and mental imagery. So when you can slow the brain waves down, that's when you're once again like consciously aware of your subconscious mind. And that's when you want to start to instill the new visualization, the new vision, even like the affirmations if you want to create that new mental picture of how you want your life to look like. Now, when I first tried to meditate, it didn't work for me because I was just visualizing a new life, but I wasn't putting the key component, which was emotion, right? So when you're doing meditation, when you're visualizing, you need to put so much emotion into it. And that's why I always say, like, use the 5 senses. What do you see? What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you touch? What do you taste? Like, are you giving hugs to your family and to your friends? Like, what is actually happening emotionally? Because if you can create that deep-rooted vision in your mind when you're meditating, your brain cannot tell the difference between something that's real versus something vividly imagined. Therefore, that vision actually becomes a memory. And if your brain thinks it's a memory, it thinks it has already happened in real life. Therefore, when you wake up from that meditation, you're going to see life from the eyes as if it has already occurred. And years ago, when I was still living at my dad's house, I was making no money, I didn't have a relationship, anything, I would visualize every single day me moving to Florida, having the business of my dreams, being married to the love of my life. And I had such a strong emotional charge that when I woke up from that meditation, like there wasn't a question of whether or not it was going to happen. I just knew it was already done. It was already there. There was no anxiety around it. So that's why I say it's like when you do the meditation, you need to create that emotional charge within it. Now, I did do a whole deep dive on how I visualize when I'm doing meditations. So make sure to watch this video after if you feel like you have tried to meditate, but you can't either get into the flow or it's hard for you to visualize. Now, the second way to reprogram your subconscious mind is what I call your talk track. Now, this is the best way to reprogram your subconscious mind all throughout the day. And it's all about being consciously aware of your subconscious thoughts. Now, the way you speak to others, and more importantly, the way that you're speaking to yourself matters a lot. And a lot of the times, the thoughts and like the conversations that you're having in your mind, you don't even realize it's your subconscious. So for an example, one thing that I have written down here is something I used to say a lot to myself is, oh my gosh, that's expensive. Now for me, I had a deep-rooted negative belief around money because growing up, my dad would always tell me like money is really hard to come by, money doesn't grow on trees. Like I didn't have a good relationship with money. So every single time I saw something that was a lot of money, I would always say consciously, I would say it out loud or in my mind, oh my gosh, that's expensive, even if I had the money to pay it. So your talk track is basically what is going on in your mind all throughout the day and what you're verbally saying out loud. So if you can become consciously aware of that talk track, of your subconscious, you can actually catch yourself either mid-sentence and change it, or you can catch yourself before you even verbally say it or you entertain that thought in your mind. So for me, every time I see something that is a lot more money than what I would spend, I would tell myself like, oh, I can afford that. And a lot of the times I can actually afford that. Or I say, oh, that's not actually where I want to put my money right now. Simple and easy. I'm not telling myself I can't afford it. I'm not telling myself it's too expensive. I'm telling myself the truth. And over time, when you do this, you are reframing it with a positive and a new emotion. You're changing the emotional charge of the thoughts and the conversations that you're having. Now, one other thing that I always used to tell myself every time I tried something new and different is I just can't do it. And it was because I was so insecure. I really had that deep-rooted emotional insecurity charge within myself. So now every single time something difficult comes my way or I'm trying something new and different when it comes to like my business, career, relationship, I always say, I'm so excited to learn this. So the emotional charge of like shame and guilt got replaced with a stronger emotional charge of joy and excitement. Now, I promise you, even if you do this for like 3 days straight, you are going to see the biggest difference in yourself. You're gonna honestly become a completely different person because you're not allowing your subconscious thoughts to take over your mind and take over your day. Now, one thing I also have written down, which you can absolutely do, is record yourself on your phone saying your new beliefs, thoughts, and listen to them throughout the day. Now, I do that a lot when it comes to like different beliefs and thoughts I want to have around specific goals and manifestations. And I do listen to something every single morning. But honestly, if you can catch yourself in the moment and reframe it that specific second, that is how you can start to rewire your subconscious mind consciously when you're still awake and when you're still aware. Now, the third way to reprogram your subconscious mind is what I call affirm movements. Now, affirmations, it never worked for me because once again, every single time I said, I am rich, I'm abundant, I am confident, my brain would always tell me, no, you're not. I would look around and be like, no, you're not. You're just telling yourself a lie. So when I realized that the reason why my brain wasn't receptive to it is because of how I would feel in my body. Remember, your subconscious lives in your body because of nervous system wiring. So now I don't just say affirmations. I describe my affirmations and I pair it with movement. So let's say I am like washing dishes or I'm going on a walk or even if I'm journaling, I will channel the emotions of how I would feel if I was actually living in that like end desired state. So now instead of me saying, I am confident, let's say I'm going on a walk, I would say, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful and thankful that I have opinions and a voice that I can share on social media. Like, so many people will be impacted by my story because they resonate with what I actually went through. Like, I no longer have to act and be this certain way. Like, I feel so confident in myself. And when you can describe that affirmation, it's much more likely your brain is going to accept it to be true because you're creating a story. And stories, once again, create emotion. They create that emotional charge. So over time, the repetition in your body, because once again, movement creates energy. If you're just sitting here and you're saying affirmations, you still feel that tightness in your chest, in your hips, in your jaws. But when you pair it with physical movement, you start to move the nervous system wiring, and you create new beliefs and affirmations inside of your actual body. So another way to also do this is EFT tapping. And I've mentioned this in some of my other videos. And that's where you tap on like 9 different meridian points in your body and you pair it with affirmations. Now, a lot of you have asked me to do a specific whole in-depth video of how to actually do EFT tapping because it's super powerful when it comes to reprogramming your subconscious mind. So I did follow through with that promise. My next video is gonna be specifically how to do EFT tapping, and at the end, I'm gonna do a guided EFT tapping session. So if you're not subscribed, make sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss that. But pairing affirmations with movement is honestly one of the best ways to reprogram your subconscious mind. So with these 3 different ways to reprogram your subconscious mind, the main goal that I really want you to focus on is being intentionally aware of the emotion that you're creating. And I promise you, I kid you not, if you do this for like 3 days, even 7 days straight, you are going to see the biggest difference in your energy, your mood, and you're going to start to see the shift and the change in your world and in your physical reality. So that's all I have for today's video. Let me know what was like a big breakthrough for you in the comments. And if you haven't watched this video, make sure to watch it next. Until my next video on EFT tapping, I love you guys so much and make sure that you stay unforgettable.